Hello cowboys! Today I will tell you how to get the best horse in the early game of Red Dead Redemption 2. Before starting the glitch, go hunting with Hosea. After this mission you will be able to saddle other horses. The glitch starts near Rick's station at this location. You need a photographer Albert. It is better to do Albert's missions in the morning or noon. At other times the missions are not active. In the first mission, a coyote steals Albert's bag.
Good heavens! My bag! That thing is robbing me! Oh, good heavens!
Don't worry.
Arthur's need get the bag back.
Thank you, sir.
Bag full of meat will tend to bring out the worst.
The first mission is complete. The next mission will be active after 48 game hours. This time Albert will be near Wallace Station. He wants to take some pictures of wolves. Arthurs have to protect Albert.
This is God's own country.
Therefore, when wolves approach, kill them.
They ain't provoked, they're just wolves.
Then Mr. Mason thanks Arthur for saving his skin again.
Once again.
Don't make
And the second mission is complete. After 48 hours, Albert will appear near Emerald Station. Finally, the third mission. In this mission you can get Missouri Fox Trotter. Before starting the mission, be sure to turn off autosave. And save the game manually. You do this so when you fail, you can try again. Let's start. You need come to Albert from back. Now follow me. Leave your horse in this place. Now go to Albert and start the mission. You need to drive the wild horses to Albert, so that he can take a pictures of them.
So, you're still alive.
Mr. Morgan!
How are you?
After the dialogue, take the Mr. Mason's horse and go to the wild horses.
Mr. Mason, I'm borrowing your horse.
Of course, Mr. Morgan. Whatever you need.
Well, now take the horses to Albert.
Good mustache. Come on. Keep moving. Yeah. Get up. Go on now, Ollie. Come on. Come on. Horses. Yeah, yeah.
The moment the horses start sprinting, quickly head to Albert.
Now run! Yeah, yeah! Yeah! Go on! That's it!
As soon as the cutscene starts, skip it immediately.
Genius.
At the beginning of the cutscene, you will see where the wild horses are running. Then jump on your horse and follow the wild horses.
Giddy up. Yep.
You can track them.
Hey cowboy, if you want to know more about Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead Online, subscribe to the channel. Believe me, Thanatos knows a lot of interesting things in this game.
Here they are. Now you need to jump on the Fox Trotter. There are no other options, just jump. This may take some time. Good. After you get on the horse, he will start nervous. Feed him or use a brush. Do this until the horse gets the first level. Okay, now go to the stable and remember you can dismount from the horse. If you get off the horse, you will not get on it later. Now put the horse in a stable, take a saddle on it and give it name.
Certainly. Let's switch them out. Oh, dear me. That's an odd name.
Then exit, go to main menu and save the game manually.
And bring that horse back in.
After that, load the game that you just saved. Nice, now you have a rare horse. Now a couple advice from me. Friends, you may not be able to catch up with wild horses the first time.
No, but I can ride a horse. Yep. Yep.
Therefore, load the save that you made before the start of the glitch and repeat. And the second tip, if you accidentally dismount, it's not the end. Sit on your horse and call a new horse, then ride to the stable. A new horse will follow you. Then just enter the stable and save the new horse. As you saw, I have two Missouri Fox Trotter horses. The game has another way to get this horse. So if you have already completed the Mr. Mason missions, here is another way for you to get Missouri Fox Trotter. Just click on the picture.
Papers.